The secret to successfully pitching publishers isn't knowing when your build is ready. You can show your game in any stage in development. The trick is knowing how to talk about what you have when it comes time to pitch. The unfortunate reality is that your finances, rather than the state of your build, often dictate when you have to start pitching. And if your game doesn't feel ready, it can be panic-inducing.
The PTA has disbanded!
But don't worry. In this video, I'm going to share 4 strategies for pitching your game at different stages in development. Let's get started. Believe it or not, some games can get funded with just a design document and a great pitch. But this approach isn't for most teams. Securing support from a publisher with little more than an idea usually requires a team who has successfully shipped 1 or more titles. Your likelihood of landing a publisher goes up if you've already worked with this publisher or come highly recommended from a team who has, but even then, it can be a stretch. You can tip the scales in your favor if you're not looking for development advances, but it's almost always in your best interest to get some money up front. Don't take an offer you're not excited about just because you're afraid it's the only one you'll get. In some rare cases, the publisher might offer to fund a prototype in exchange for first rights of refusal, but this generally isn't something you can plan for. If this is your first commercial game, you shouldn't be pitching at this stage. If you've got a prototype, that means some aspects of your game are playable, but your build probably isn't much to look at. It's likely filled with gray box placeholder art, has no music or sound effects, and may not even include any real level design. Prototypes often focus on fundamentals, like nailing player movement or determining whether certain mechanics are even fun. If you need to pitch with a prototype, you have to be extra clear about what it is you're showing off. For example, it might be obvious to you that you're only demonstrating how it feels to control the player. But if you don't call this out, the publisher might misjudge your game as having poor level design, when in fact, the platforms in your game are nothing more than a playground for testing movement. The amount of speaking you have to do on behalf of your game diminishes as you approach a vertical slice, but here, at the prototype stage, you still need to be fairly vocal about what the intended takeaway is. If this is your first commercial game, I don't recommend pitching at this stage unless you're showing off an extremely innovative concept and your funding needs are very low. At this stage in development, you're close to locking down your core mechanics and the things that make your game shine. You've got some levels, art, and sound in your game, but most of those details are still subject to change. This is the point at which it starts to feel less terrifying to show off your game, but it's also when parts of your game risk falling into that uncanny review valley. In the same way robots make you feel more uncomfortable as they approach, but fall short of looking human, publishers are more likely to misjudge parts of your game as they approach, but fall short of being final. It might seem logical that improving the quality of your build across the board would make your pitch stronger, but this isn't always the case. For example, if you make a start screen that's really pretty but isn't representative of how you see the final product, you might be better off with simple text on a black background. Sure, the pretty version of your start screen is probably more comfortable for you to show off, but it risks slipping into that uncanny review valley. On the other hand, a much simpler screen reads clearly as a placeholder and won't invite any premature judgment from the reviewer. Focusing your efforts on critical areas like player onboarding, level design, storytelling, and character movement gives you the best chance of nailing those elements, the ones that say the most about your game and your skills as a designer. But it will also project the qualities of a mature development pipeline. Publishers look for developers who know how to work on the right things in the right order because teams who can do this are less likely to fall behind by spending too much time drawing leaves before even blocking out their forest temple. If this is your first commercial game, this is probably the earliest you should be pitching to publishers. From most publishers' perspectives, a vertical slice is the holy grail of builds. This is a demo in which all aspects of your game could ship as they are. They probably won't, but they could. The art and animation are as you dreamed, the writing and level design are rich and engaging, there's music, sound effects, and more juice than I don't know, a juice factory. A vertical slice lets the publisher play a part of your game that brings the full depth of your vision to life. If you've done it correctly, your setup for this build is, here is our vertical slice. At this stage, the game is doing all the talking. The one caveat to the vertical slice is that, unlike the previous three stages, it's not a natural step in development. You'll find yourself working on parts of your game that, without having to develop a pitch, you wouldn't normally touch so early. This means you may do some development that ends up being discarded. For the right publishing fit, this can be a worthwhile diversion, but this is a trade-off you should be aware of and accept before deciding to make a vertical slice. If this is your first commercial game, you will likely pitch with a build somewhere between a pre-alpha and a vertical slice. If you're able to make it to a vertical slice without a publisher, this is usually the best asset to pitch with. But, as you can see, there are ways to pitch at almost any stage in development. Just remember to be mindful that where you fall on that spectrum will determine how much you have to say and how much the game can say for itself. For the record, publishers do far more than simply fund your project. So if you're unsure if a publisher is right for you, or if you're interested in learning about alternative funding options, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to cover those topics in future videos. Thanks for watching, and until next time, please be kind to yourself and be kind to others. I'll see you in the next video.